I don't know if I'll be as inspiring as the band. Uh, that was great music. I don't know where they are right now, but let's give applause for that band that was up here. First generation. So I'm about telling stories, and I'm a wanderer, so I'll be back and forth. I'm not a podium guy. I'm also not a microphone guy. I rather actually wear t-shirt and blue jeans, to be honest with you. But we're going to tell some stories. So one of the things that I realized when I'm sitting in your seats is that I need to know a little bit more about the presenter. So I often spend time telling you about me, because who's this person in front of you that should be talking to you? So I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to a very blue-collar family. We didn't have a whole lot of money, and I wore canvas shoes and probably the same thing over and over again. And then I also am humbling experience. Yes, in the 80s, I had big hair and a dog. In high school, I played baseball and football. More importantly, I was told by my guidance counselors I shouldn't bother going to college. I'm not college material. How many of you, and this is not a question you can answer, but how many of you remember your guidance counselor's secretary's name? Well, I do, because she was the one that, after hearing this, said, and her name is Janice Palin. She said, if you want to go and you have the desire to be there, you go. And my grandfather also said, you're going. At that time, there was a significant investment you had to make in your education, and that was an avenue where you were almost guaranteed success. So after high school, I went to college. I spent 3 years in architectural school in Milwaukee, and then I went to Stout for education. Then they actually gave me a degree, and I started teaching. So some of the projects that we work on, again, I want to show you a little bit of history about me and the work that can be done in your schools, are up here. Top picture is a formula car. This was built with students over a period of about 4 months. And the lead person on this project actually wanted to go to school to be a chef. And there's nothing wrong with that. But he realized real quickly, and we realized real quickly, that he was actually a very good project manager. And by the way, I do know that females make the best project managers and often the best engineers. Attention to detail, follow through, etc. That was unanticipated, though. That's not to take away from the male species. We actually do some nice work as well. The bottom vehicle, 800 miles to gallon. There's no cup holders in it, though. We also work on projects that are different than automotive type things. This is the Overture Center in Madison, Wisconsin. These windows are the largest manufactured windows in the world. They weigh about as much as a Volkswagen. Trouble is, they all hang from the ceiling, right? It's not supported by the bottom. So I had to preload these, this grid. And the architects came to us in our little high school and asked us what we thought. And often, if you ask a problem to a set of engineers and to students, you'll come up with a lot more creative solutions from the students because they haven't been told they can't before. So the idea was to get them to do that, and actually they preloaded this grid with New Jersey barriers, concrete barriers, and as the windows were put in, the load was taken off. So the actual process that the architects thought they had, well, they actually used a student project. And by the way, I recently attended a nice concert there. Willie Nelson in concert was my Father's Day present to my dad, so I had to get Willie in there somehow. Here is another student project. This is a 9-foot rocket. Inside of this composite rocket is testing equipment to survey lots of different things as it goes up. But you'll look at the wagon on the left-hand side, and you'll get a perspective of how big this actually is. This is a project that took around 4 months as well. And they're looking for data, not just blast the thing up, and it's cool, but they're capturing data on the way down, etc. So I'll play this, and hopefully Jazz has got this queued up and we can go. Windy day. Obviously, you got an FAA clearance. We're down in Illinois, northern Illinois, to launch this Rockets for Schools. You see the flag. It's not video quality, publication quality stuff, but the idea is kids built this. And obviously, you hear the excitement and you hear the kids, and this is what it's all about, right? we're inspiring the next generation of engineers, and you've heard this often. Then I decided that it was a good idea, and I went to Wisconsin, and they actually gave me, after lots of hard work, a degree in industrial and systems engineering. And this is a short bus. I did ride the short bus. So my colleagues picked me up and drove my family and I around the campus to deliver me to my graduation and the events afterwards in a short bus. Some of the projects at Wisconsin we worked on in the past, I'm not sure if the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation would want to know this, but seatbelts for buses, obviously we see that a lot now these days. A lot of companies are trying to do this. In 2005, we had this prototype built and others like it. Composite work for a STEP project, and most recently, you'll see a white-tailed deer and the harness on that deer. We actually built a harness that goes on the deer's back and carries that information because these deer were stepping through the collars, and we didn't want to have that harm the animals, etc. So wheelchairs for Honduras, fabricated all these things from scratch. And why is that important? Because we had to give them something that was repairable in their environment. So instructions, etc. So also all-terrain type vehicles that could move around. And then probably the most public event where we build portals to an architecture out in the engineering mall, foundations, all the work that had to be done with and safety and things like that. So this was a little bit interesting because either faculty loved it or hated it because it was right out in front of engineering hall. It subsequently was taken down. So most recently, as I was introduced, I'm the Chief Academic Officer for the STEM Academy. We are a nonprofit institution that's K, post-secondary, built by teachers, for teachers. I want to tell you a little bit about what STEM is. STEM is a meta-discipline. It's interdisciplinary. It's the work that we do every day and integrate it along with all the other teachers in the school. I was having a nice conversation with Ray Landis. He said, well, tell me a little more about that. Well, the idea is we're showing real reason for education to these students. As they get in their engineering careers or their actual careers, we need to develop those skills more specifically so it's less global and more specific. So it contracts a little bit as you get up in age in schools. Imagine this, knowing why you're in an English class in high school and as it relates to your science class and how the science relates to math and how that math relates to the psychology or social studies of the work and how does PE fit in. A lot of students don't know why they go from compartment to compartment to compartment. And none of that information is ever shared with one another. That's what STEM tries to do. That's the idea of STEM. Now, some would say, well, it should be STEAM. There should be an A in there, right? And what does the A stand for? Some would argue that it's arts. I would agree. Some would argue that it's agriculture, and I would agree, right? The pedagogy of STEM is really about getting all that to matter together. I've also seen STREAM. What does the R stand for? Rhetoric. Is it reading? Is it religion? The idea is getting us all this information in one package that makes sense to kids. So it's a pedagogy, not an acronym. I'm going to show you a project that we recently finished in Houston. This is with inner city urban students that often were having problems in school. And they were challenged to, over the course of a year, design a homeless shelter. And they had sponsors, we had folks donating things, and this is out of 90% biodegradable material. They chose cardboard. So this is the model. There's some calculations, all the information that's in the background on this. Then we had to build it. What I want to bring up to you is that some of these students, or most of these students, have an issue with follow-through in their lives. There's not a whole lot of things that get finished. At the beginning of the year, they knew that this project was going on, but they didn't really expect to finish it. So when it came time to actually build one of the 30 some odd designs that were there, this was about 130 or 140 students. We actually built it. And then they had to talk about it, stand up and present it to folks, much like I'm doing with you now, much like your students do in your courses. And then they were so excited that this thing was actually done, so you see an interior shot, etc. But the idea is to finish. It's hard to finish. 70% is relatively achievable, but finishing is hard. And then, oh, by the way, yes, I am raising my own family now, much like many of you, 6-year-old twins at home. One of the interesting things that we have seen as well in the work that I've done, and I'll move on to the next section, is that Clemson University is, for the first time, offering College of Engineering credit for our courses. Many institutions, including the NCATC, also do that. But this is not elective credit. This is actually mattering inside the College of Engineering. If I know and am able to produce to you a rationale that these students know and are able to do things, then they should be able to achieve that. So here's an exercise for you. On the next slide, you're going to see something. What I'd like you to do is either write down what you see or lean over and loudly or quietly tell your neighbor what you see on the next slide. This is audience participation, right? By the way, I'll tell you a story about that in a second. So what do you see? Okay, so what's the answer, right? Well, actually what you see is the light at the end of the tunnel. Or it's the headlight of a speeding train. It could be, when I asked it could be a Virginia restaurant. The Whites, anybody here from Virginia? Have you had Gus's Gut Burger? No, right, so all the students have, but not the faculty. I asked my son, he said it was Spider-Man's eye, right? Actually, the real answer, it's the belly button on a hippopotamus. The idea is it's whatever you want it to be. So often in workshops and symposiums, I ask the question, and the answer is it's a white dot, Al. White dot on a black screen, it's a hole in a screen, etc. Well, as adults, we try to optimize. And in your defense, you say, white dot, what's next, right? In your defense, I didn't ask you what it could be. Right, so if you change the wording up a little bit, you can inspire creativity. What is it, or what could it be? So that exercise was talking about creativity and innovation. That was done unscientifically with elementary school students and high school students. And they went and asked elementary school students and said, what do you see? And they had all these crazy ideas like a dot on a gecko or a top of an eraser, et cetera. It's the moon and the stars. And then they went to high schools and asked the same question. You know what the answer was? White dot. Right about 3rd grade is where students figure it out. Teachers are looking for answers. And instead of being creative and innovative, they give the answer the teacher's looking for to optimize. 3rd or 4th grade. The good news is that creativity exists in all of us. Human beings are incredibly capable people, right? We have this incredible capacity to do things. Whether we have the desire or not, that's to be, understood. So success. What determines success? What is successful? I don't know how many of you have actually looked at unsubsidized student loan rates. Mortgage rates right now are at 4%. Student loan rates are expensive money. In 98 to 2006, this is the money that I spent. It was a wise investment there. It was an easy investment. But at 7.9%, it's something that folks are thinking about, right? This is how much your students in college are going to be taking out in loans this summer to pay for next school year. $63 billion. That's big business. So another story. This is my friend Bill. That's me, and that's a Diet Coke, right? This is a project we're working on in northern Wisconsin. It's a family project for the last 10 years. And yes, that's my father at the backside of there watching us. He can do that because he's retired, right? He worked real hard. So here's the story of Alan Bill. My bachelor's degree, he's an apprentice electrician. Now he's a master's electrician. This is what my career was supposed to look like. About $40,000 a year average. I didn't adjust anything for inflation or raises. On average, we're paying $25,000 a year for college. and typically 5 years. I put in 5%. We're looking at 8% now, so that number is actually higher. And here's Bill. He had no loans, and he was paid while he was being educated. And you can see how things might differ. I wondered why in the first few years of work after college, I had no money. Couldn't buy a couch. I was still operating with cinder blocks and 2x4s for shelving. Well, if you look, I'm in a deficit paying things back. So who's the winner? Now, some would say, well, it depends on what you call winning, and we'll ask Charlie Sheen for that, but the idea is that students determine success on the almighty dollar. So if you look at that, here's $368,000. Would you like that? And I don't know anybody that's going to turn that down. What are you trying to do for your needs? Raise a family, travel the world, tour different places. Provide for your needs is what we need to do as individuals in the work area. So who's doing it right? And I don't know that I'm going to stand here, or any of us could actually stand and tell Bill that he's doing it wrong. Plus he's 6'5" and a pretty strong individual. So. Another story for you. I'm going to give you a product example. And we're going to walk through that product together. This product has millions of unique parts. It has hundreds to thousands of suppliers. There are different systems of documentation among suppliers. There are different standards used to measure quality. There are increasing costs in this product. As phases of product are handed off to another division, lack of information is passed. History and details of work are scarce. Metrics do not match one another. Goals of divisions are different, and work is often repeated or missed entirely. Technology is rarely used to document details. Often parts are misplaced or lost. Less than half of the final product is ready for shipment. Sounds like a lot of consulting work, right? This fictitious product is our education system. The product at the end could be much better optimized, meaning who's feeding you? I'd like to introduce a term today. Let's introduce a term to each other today. We talk about concurrent engineering. Let's talk about concurrent education. Let's talk about elementary schools that actually talk and work with middle schools, that actually talk and work with high schools, that actually scale into military possibilities, all branches of military. Apprenticeships is also part of educating our students and the ability for us to do work. And universities, including two-year universities, technical colleges, and community colleges. Often we pass grades ahead, and many of you have asked, well, what did you have for a grade in physics? And they said, I got a B+. What does that tell you? Nothing if you don't know the metrics that were used inside of the previous institution. We don't pass along what a student knows and is able to do, right? Well, we have ACT scores. That's great, but what are they able to do with it is the idea. So concurrent education is really talking about having all these islands talk to each other and work together. This is a take from Sesame Street. I'd like to introduce the letter T to you. It comes in many different shapes and sizes. In places I go to, schools I work with, these folks spend more time and energy saying we can't do that and defending that position than actually working towards a goal that's needed by those who are asking them to do things. Pages and pages and hours and phone calls defending we can't do that. When one little letter can make a whole difference in things. Just like that white dot, you might be able to take that one letter out of what you do and provide that effort towards helping students, towards helping organizations, towards helping build communities. That's the idea. Because these folks are the ones that are going to be serving you in your communities. If we don't educate these kids now, They're the ones that are going to go out into your communities and serve you. They're the ones that are going to read your ashtrays, plumb your houses, right? Fix the electricity on the streets so that the lights work. When the lights go out on your house, these are the folks that are actually putting them back on. So either you teach them now or pay for it later. There's also an important piece here. It's the 6-year shift. This is what's happening in the United States. This is from the National Center for Education Statistics. The hatched and white states or clear states are suffering a decline in high school graduates. This is 2007-8 through 2020-21. And the shaded states, light to dark, are seeing an increase in students. This is a reality. So if you're in Texas, you're seeing an increase of 15% or more. If you're in Alaska, you're seeing 5 to 15% or 5% or more. If you're in Arizona, you're seeing more than 5%. We talk a lot about the engineer of 2020. We're educating students to go out and design things for people to consume. When we see a demographic shift that we're going to see, our designers that design things for people don't necessarily represent the cultures of those people. In fact, around 6% of the designers that design things for people to consume represent the minority population. Business and industry are going to see that in a short 6 years as a crisis. Because if you don't design things with people in mind that are consuming them and the cultures they represent, they're not going to buy them. I use the story of it be like me designing lipstick. I don't use lipstick. I don't use lipstick, really. I don't know how to use it. Therefore, should I be able to design it? Well, I think, or we might be able to, versus having someone that actually does use that piece of equipment to design it themselves. So, in 2020, we're going to see about 21,000 fewer white college students, which has an unrealized income deficit of $329 million. Around 11,000 fewer African American college students, $177 million. The road to 2020 is going to have an unrealized income of $1.27 billion. 2020 alone, and every year after that, around $500 million. And the 2020 total is a negative $1.77 billion unrealized income to post-secondary education. On the flip side, 35,000 more Hispanic college students, 30,000 more Asian college students. Now that is also, that the Hispanic college students is a $560 million positive. The Asian college students, you see a change on the right-hand side, and that represents, and typically this is 50% of the population is going on to post-secondary. There's a possibility that up to 75% of the Asian college students are going to be there, so there's a difference of a little bit there. And then about 1,100 more Native American and Alaskan Native students, $20 million there. The road to 2020, 2.46 to $3.2 billion. 2020 alone, and every year after that, 1 to 1.3 billion. 2020 total, 3.52 to $4.5 billion. That delta is $6.27 billion. If that doesn't give you rationale for doing something a little bit different, I don't know what could. The market trends are, students are going to where it makes the most sense. We've got students that are traveling across borders to get their degrees because they're a third of the price. Now, I could argue that our education system here at the universities you find people teach at is better than that, better than this. I'm not going to get into the politics or arguing one institution for another, but students are making financial decisions. Higher education can no longer be a holding tank for them to figure it out. They're getting that. I'm going to go to university because I'll figure it out there. If you're going to invest $125,000 at 7 or 8%, you better know where you're going and see something at the end of the rainbow. So I'd kind of be a fool if I didn't tell you how we're actually doing some of these things. And I'm going to take some examples from my home state of Wisconsin. Now more than ever, we need to unite as educators, K-16 and beyond. In Wisconsin, we are working to eliminate barriers that prevent learners from exploring STEM careers, increasing emphasis on STEM knowledge and skills for all learners, K-16, pre-K-16, increasing public and private partnerships with a focus on STEM skills. Here's some nice companies in Wisconsin that are helping us do that. Establish a statewide awareness campaign for STEM careers. If these folks don't know about it, if you don't tell them, they're not going to understand it. So a marketing campaign is quite important. And investing in pre- and post-professional development for educators to fully understand and integrate STEM throughout the curriculum. This includes pre-K-12 school systems, colleges, universities, educational cooperatives, business and industries, youth organizations, local and state government organizations, and other supportive professional organizations. It's really having the whole community, the state, have a vision for what they want their education system to look like, and what are the outcomes. You know, the report we did with the National Academy of Engineering said we need outcomes-based work. The NGSS standards, of which I've spent a lot of time with in our 21 courses that we offer to schools, aligns with NGSS and ABET, and the ITEA standards, and the NRC standards, and the NCTM. There's lots of different sets of standards, 9 national sets of standards that, which one do you want to pick? So I've interpreted a lot of that piece, those pieces. Mediocrity is often the goal of some, and it suffocates innovation. Yes, perfection is many times unattainable. However, good enough is unacceptable. Chase perfection, and you will achieve excellence. Now, not while we're sitting here, but if anyone can tell me where that quote came from afterwards, I have a nice little prize for you. Chase perfection, and you will achieve excellence. Not now. Of course, you're going to get out your smartphones. Are you smart? So what do we do? What do you do? What do we do together? We build strong connections between K-12 and higher education. About 3.5 million students are expected to graduate from high school in 2012-2013, including 3.1 million students from public high schools and 283-some thousand from private high schools. We need to provide multiple routes that do not limit students that strive for more. A pathway is needed for late bloomers. They don't dead end. I can't get into university because of X, Y, or Z. We need a conduit for them to achieve their goals. You know, back when I was the student that was not supposed to go to college, it was, interestingly, not too hard to get my way into the system, because I realized at that time it was important. Often we have folks in their senior year of high school that go, oh, I get it, I understand, now I got to do this. But their ACT scores aren't there, their GPAs aren't there, their history is that of an unsuccessful student, and you're banking on successful students getting through the program. Retention rates, right? That's important to all of you. But this kid understands that it's time to work hard, and they want to achieve their goals. So how do we provide a pathway, a lateral pathway, a horizontal pathway that then allows them to climb the vertical ladder to then see you folks as the end of their education system or the beginning of their lives? We need to build strong connections amongst engineering and engineering technology institutions. 2- and 4-year schools need to talk to each other. Here's what I see in the state of Wisconsin. These are the public institutions that are engineering degree granting: Wisconsin, Marquette, Platteville, UW-Milwaukee, and UW-Stout. These are the 2-year institutions in Wisconsin that offer engineering technology degrees, etc. And while there are some examples of connections. We need to bring these folks together so that students see the pathway to success. We talked about concurrent education before, linking the elementary schools, the middle schools, the high schools, etc. Same idea. We're seeing a deficit in students in some areas. This is business for you folks, FTEs, etc. We need to show them a way to achieve their goals. We also need to build institutions that embrace underrepresented populations. Women make up around 56% of college students. Hispanic, African American, Asian, Pacific Islander, Native American, Alaska Native will be the majority very soon. Some speculations are 2018. I've seen 2025. I've also seen 2042. An interesting statistic, though, is that 50.1% of babies born in the year 2011 for the past 12 months were in the minority group. Asian American, African American, Hispanic, etc. 50.1% of babies born up to July of 2011, in that 12-month period preceding that. It is impossible to foretell, definitely, just what civilization will be 20 years from now. Hence, it is impossible to prepare the child for any precise set of conditions. To prepare them for the future life means to give them command of themselves. It means to train them so that they will have full and ready use of all their capacities, that their eyes and ears and hands may be tools ready to command, that their judgments may be capable of grasping the conditions under which they have to work, and their executive forces be trained to act economically and efficiently. Those aren't my words. 116 years ago, John Dewey coined that phrase. It is very appropriate that we follow that message 116 years later. So, I'm shopping. These are my kids. They're 6 years old, and in a short 13 years, they will be your clients, along with millions and millions of other students across the nation. What do we have to offer them? And are we going to set up barriers or pathways? That's the idea. You want to make sense to these kids that aren't even there yet. And 20 years from now, where are we going to be then? It needs to be affordable and flexible. That's the message. So we need pathways, not barriers, and we have lots of work to do. So thank you very much for your time. I believe we're going to start the moderation session right now.
Okay, we've got about 15 minutes here for questions and answers, so let's start. And I think somebody around here's got a microphone that can bring you if you have a question. Where's the mic?
I'm watching the person with the mic that's got the tennis shoes on that are running things around, so.
Okay.
Before you even get there, I saw a hand here, so go ahead and ask before the mic even gets there. I'll repeat the question. And if I fall off the stage, guaranteed YouTube, for sure. Right, so the correction there was that many cases engineering technology programs are also four-year programs. The technical colleges and community colleges, the message really is that we need engineering and engineering technologists to work together. They're all going to end up in the workforce, right? They're going to have to talk to each other there. So we need to talk to each other now. They may be engineering technology programs that are four-year, but those institutions still need to talk to folks that are in the theoretical point of view as well, so that when they work together beyond their matriculation, they're successful there as well. Thank you. Yes, we have a question. There's a mic actually in the aisle right now too. Go ahead. Okay, so the idea of international students taking up spots of folks that are from this country taking their spots. There could be political reasons for that. There could be otherwise, but the idea is we're offering a service to kids, to all kids, and we have to have multiple pathways. So if they're denied a spot, there should be other places for them to go. If they dead end there, how do you give them opportunities to get there, right? So instead of saying, you've got my spot, I want that spot, we need to give them alternatives versus saying, no, I'm sorry, stop. We need to have alternative pathways. You know, my grandfather taught me that the tree has many branches and there's many ways at the top. So there's different avenues to get there, right? So the idea is to give them opportunities, if they don't have a spot, to give them a place to go to attain that pathway.
Do I have the mic?
You're up.
We just saw some pictures of young kids all fired up about doing beautiful projects, okay? In 4 or 5 years, they're going to hit mathematics and delta epsilon arguments. It seems to me that the emphasis of the mathematicians on proving everything is really harmful toward it's a barrier to encouraging students to enter the other STE fields. It seems to me that we have to talk to the mathematicians and tell them, soften things up, do things better, make it easier. Show them how the mathematics is going to fit in with what they like and what they want to do. Functions are curves. And we could tell everybody, they're curves, that's all they are. They go up, they go down, they turn this way, they turn that way, and we want them to learn that. We don't need the deltas and epsilons first.
Here's what I've made it simple in this way. Math is a socket wrench. And my colleague, Chris Strozak, would say, it's actually a ratchet is the tool. But many times we teach math to kids as poetry. They don't see math as poetry. I had a nice young teacher in Oregon from Oregon, not Oregon. I've been many times corrected. He said, I don't get it. Why don't these kids get it? I said, you're trying to teach them poetry. They need to see math as a tool to achieve something. My son is 6. He doesn't like reading. Most 6-year-old boys don't. They like building things. If you give them reason to do something and see the means to the end, they'll do that. Hayden, if you write a letter and you read this information, you might be able to get some parts for the thing you want to build. And that week, and beyond that week, he was now interested in actually literacy because he saw it as a tool. So teach math as a tool. Obviously, yes, we have the theory that we need to be placed in certain places, but the idea is teaching kids that this is an object that they can use to do something with.
Yeah, if you've got a question, why don't you go up to the mic and then
How about me? I've been standing here for a long time. Mr. Gomez,
There's another microphone over there.
Okay, good.
I really appreciated your talk. It was good. You didn't mention anything about online learning, and I think online learning is not there yet, but it's going to be a pathway to the future where kids can get a great education without going to college, incurring all those costs, as long as we can figure out a way to certify them and test them so employers will hire them. Would you care to comment about your view of that future?
Sure, absolutely. I think education is going to be different than we know it now. Education is different than when you went to school or when I went to school. There's an incredible shift in the tools we use. How many of you were around for the transition from slide rules to calculators? Raise your hand. Was that difficult? Was there some challenge there? There's always challenges there. The tools you use, and I was talking with where's Bill? You know, what you give up is about this big by using the tools we have now. What you gain is huge, right? So the idea of blended, not all virtual, because we still need to be able to have table time. I am still a proponent for kids to be able to sit next to one another and talk to each other, read body language, understand what's happening, right? You can't do that in a virtual world necessarily. they do communicate and collaborate in these video games, right? Online video games, whatever they do. But when you get them face to face, they freeze. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to socially interact. Until we get rid of all social interaction, we still need that to be a component. So a hybrid of that, whereby they can actually learn the things that they need to learn and use them to do something within teams, is the solution. You might be able to shorten the runway of the tools you need to give them, right? So that they can come to the table with those tools by doing something more electronic in nature, absolutely.
Thank you.
You bet.
Who's next?
Right down in front here. Right, being honest with the kids from the beginning. What it takes to go from one place to another. Good success story, thank you. Yes, are we okay on time?
Yes, yeah, we got about another.
He's the boss.
Yeah. But yeah, you please use a mic so people can hear your question.
Okay. Wow, it echoes back at you quite a bit. I've seen statistics. This is a demographics question. I've seen statistics that now the majority of students at the post-high school level, the university level, are women. Where are the guys?
Yes. We are people, females want to understand why it makes a difference. And they want their work to be culminating and have a rationale for the work that needs to be done. And see that these things are done in a way so that it gets them to this place. In large capacity, guys want to do stuff. I don't know that the male species sees that 4 or 5 years as a wise investment. I know some students that are out of college that are not buying houses. It's not a good investment, or it hasn't been. Market's coming back right now. Maybe they see it as not a wise investment at 8%. Is Bill wrong? Was Bill wrong to go and be an apprentice electrician and earn $70,000, $80,000 right now? We've got kids that are coming out of Lexington 1 school district that are getting $60,000 a year jobs with Michelin because of the work that they learned and the work that we've taught them inside that school. And then they can transition to Clemson as well. The idea is they see a more immediate need, and maybe that's where they're at. Maybe they're in apprenticeships. Maybe they're over here doing these things, while the female demographic sees this as a longer-term investment, return on investment. That's my thought.
Yeah, next question.
You've talked a lot about getting the students excited. How do we re-educate the teachers to get excited?
One of the, I talk about what makes a great teacher in some workshops, and there are a few different things that we know that goes into great teaching. Rapport with students, knowledge of subject, and excitement. And the recommendation how do you teach excitement? That's difficult to do, right? The number one way to get excited about teaching is to go away from it. Take a vacation, right? Spend some time reflecting and then get back to it. So that's the number one way, is get away from it. The other piece is we have lots of different things as teachers that we have to do that aren't teaching. Part of the work that I do is try to shorten that runway and give them all the resources they need: correlation to standards, lesson plans, marketing work, assessments, etc. So they don't have to be statisticians and assessment experts and writers. So they can be rock star teachers, right? You're on. You are on from day one. They're at the concert with you, right? We talk about online learning. These kids want the concert. They want to come see you. They want to be excited and inspired. But you're on now. And you're on till you walk off that stage. And sometimes that's 8 hours a day with a 28-minute lunch and 5 minutes to go find a restroom. Now, maybe not at university, but the idea is it's hard. Go away from it. Be inspired. Rapport with students, knowledge of subject, and excitement. That's a meta-analysis of all the work that's out there that looks at great teaching. Yes, sir.
We will come as an educator and meet you half the way. We will create a pathway for people or kids to grow up and become professional. But we don't want to create an isolated case and fall behind the international or global economies or as a whole world. Have you studied of what they do in the advanced economy or advanced education in other countries? Because if you're bringing the level of education down to create pathway, then you don't want to fall behind from other countries.
I would agree. Absolutely. There are lots of different examples that we can utilize. Part of the system that we operate in with right now is it's going to take a movement. It's going to take a crisis for us to move this system a little bit better than slow, to modify it towards or evolve it. I like to use the term evolution because I don't want to forget where we've been to know where we're going. Everybody says change, 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 but that freaks everyone out. So remember where you've been to know where you're going and use examples from different places. And institutions are going to vary. But as a system as a whole, we want to look at other examples of things, Germany, for example, right? Is their educational model a better educational model than we have in the United States? Maybe. Are there some others that are less off than we are right here? And take examples from all those pieces to metamorphosize what we have going here towards our goal. That's the idea.
We come in a halfway, meet you, and create a pathway, but I think the value of education needs to become more important, making money. It become a part of a culture and the community.
It's about building communities, absolutely. These folks that you're educating are coming back to your communities. I ask school boards when I see them, and you might want to ask your school boards of the residences, the communities you live in, where do our students end up? Not where do they go? Do they come back to our communities? And if so, what kind of education do you want them to have? Because again, these are the folks that are taking care of you. The nurses, the doctors, the mechanics, the plumbers, the electricians, all the folks in your community. We need to educate them first so that when they come back to this community that we live in, we have services for us. None of us are getting younger, right? Please.
One more question I think we got time for.
Well, I think you just answered the question that I was going to ask. Have you given this same talk to trade associations? Because although this is an engineering audience, everybody in the world can't be an engineer, and in fact, if everybody in the world was an engineer, it would not be a very nice place to live. And we really need the electricians and the plumbers and so on, so that I think that there needs to be in the school system a recognition that trades are very well-respected occupations, and as you've demonstrated, very well-remunerated occupations.
Absolutely. That's why I use the example of Bill and I, is that there's lots of different ways to get educated. And we need to provide those pathways for kids and show them that. And what if Bill wanted to go to university after he's done with his master electrician's license? And does he have a pathway there? Or has he dead-ended? The idea is we're educating kids to create communities. All kids. The neglected majority included, not just the top 10% of a school. Right? We have programs for the top 10% and the lagging 10%, but this neglected majority, where I was as a high school student, is avoided. These are the kids that slip through the cracks. So start using that term. STEM is a meta-discipline. It's integrated. It's talking to teachers all over the school. It's not in a box with a teacher. And we need to create pathways for all kids, including the neglected majority.
Well, I think we're out of time. Let's give Dr. Gomez a hand here.
Thanks, everybody.